like to introduce Mark Garkaklis, who works for Barb Wilson Proprietary Limited, and has been an absolute warrior in progressing our sort of fight against Phytophthora. Really, he's going to talk about the national registration of that chemical, of phosphate.
Thanks, Jack. And I've got to really get going. I have been involved in a small way in some of Australia's biggest resource development and conservation projects right around the country, but I have never been involved in one which had a kaleidoscope of moving parts that makes me understand the idea of microdosing quite like this particular project. The National Phosphite Registration Project. This is really a progress report on how we're delivering this on behalf of the Australian government. The project is an Australian-wide project to consider some of the gaps with respect to our understanding of how we manage the risks of phosphite use and how we demonstrate how we'll be able to effectively roll out an on-label use of phosphite around Australia. It's sponsored by DQ, managed out of Canberra. Project managers for this particular project are DTS registration consultants who are based in Queensland. They have clear lines of communication to the most key player in this project, which is the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority under the Australian government, who we are seeking approval for on-label or registered use for phosphite to control Phytophthora dieback in the bush. Project partners are Barbara Wilson Proprietary Limited. Barbara sitting over there. We're a small part in this project, but we've both been working in Phytophthora management around Australia since the 90s. University of Western Sydney, they're our science leads with regard to understanding potential risks of phosphite use to the soil biome. And University of Southern Queensland, and they're leading our studies in the aquatics space. I'm starting this talk with acknowledgements. It is a lot of moving parts, and it is nationwide. And if we didn't have our partners, if we didn't have that long history of communication and trust with all our project partners, it would be very, very difficult to pull this project off. Firstly, I'd like to go to the private property owners who have been really supportive of having us undertake works on their properties. One in particular, Anthony Starry and Helen at Sandy Creek Valley. Sandy Creek is just near Carlisle River, runs parallel to another creek called Lees Creek, and it's dissected by a track called Egan's Track, and that's the focus of our studies in the Otway Ranges. The other is Rory and Julianne Nathan. They have a property up at Mitchellstown, up near Heathcote. They've got critically endangered Xanthorrhoea glauca that's being impacted by Phytophthora cinnamomi, and they've volunteered their property to be part of this registration project as well. Forest fire management have been fantastic at being able to really facilitate all of the paperwork we needed to get access to Otway's Forest Park, which they've just done a fantastic job for us, in particular Pete Ashton, Stu Gardner and Andrew Standish. Parks Vic as well, and I really appreciate the support from Michael McKenzie. Western Australia, the Parks and Wildlife Service. I'm going to highlight a name that none of you would really know, and her name is Sarah Barrett, and with all of the work we do in landscape management for Phytophthora, we stand on her shoulders. Queensland Department of Environment, Tourism, Science and Innovation, Jess Rowland, James Plant and several others in Queensland. A special thank you to Elise Furlan from the Centre for Conservation Ecology and Genomics at the University of Queensland as well. Acknowledgements to our aerial treatment service providers, in particular Field Air Ballarat. They do a lot of work with forest fire management, and I'm sure FFM are horrified to know that a lot of the resources for Field Air are currently sitting in Greece, not in Australia. Aussie Drones, as well as Drone Connection in Western Australia. The introduced plant pathogen Phytophthora is the second greatest threat to Australia's Commonwealth-listed matters of national environmental significance, plants, animals and ecosystems. It has a much greater impact than introduced foxes or feral cats, and the ongoing threat from Phytophthora dieback disease caused by the pathogen is extreme. We had some papers beforehand where Steve Van Leeuwen was one of the co-authors. Well, Steve Van Leeuwen in WA helped project manage the delivery of the State of the Environment report. This is some of their work, which listed the impact of introduced threatening processes to listed matters in Australia. Number one on the list is the European rabbit, which we find very little we can do to manage. Number two is Phytophthora cinnamomi. We can actually manage that, but we're not doing it. The distribution of Phytophthora around Australia, if you go to the Atlas of Living Australia, you go, you beauty, you get these dots. This is just positive records of Phytophthora. People have given up putting the positive records of Phytophthora on the Atlas of Living Australia. We've had some presentations that looked in wooded heathlands at today's presentation. Some of those are infested with Phytophthora. If you were to run up the Victorian border from Portland and head north, you go through Lower Glenelg, you've got amazing Kentbruck heathlands, you've got Drudjerk, you've got Wilkin, Rennick, Nangeela. These are all infested with Phytophthora, and there's not one positive record listed on the ALA. The distribution of the pathogen is from the north of Queensland, and it is currently, as we sit here, enjoying our presentations, is currently killing the southernmost distribution of the austral grass tree in Bruny Island. It is an absolutely devastating impact. When we look more closely, not just more broadly about how widely it is distributed, we find out that washing our shoes is probably not going to help. Carlisle Heath is heavily infested already with the pathogen. And this is some work done under the Wild Otways initiative with forest fire management. And any coloured area that's not green has already been identified as having Phytophthora dieback present, and it is spreading. Carlisle Heath is in really big trouble. The only effective tool we have to manage Phytophthora dieback in an already infested landscape is phosphite, and that goes back to Sarah Barrett's 30 years of work, who demonstrated the efficacy of using phosphite on behalf of the West Australians. And it's a widely used agricultural chemical. Hands up who likes avocado? You're eating phosphite. Because we wouldn't have an avocado industry without phosphite application to avocado trees to protect them from Phytophthora cinnamomi. But we can't use it in the bush on label, simply because we didn't have some of the data that the APVMA were looking for. We can use it on label for avocado trees, for horticulture, for your roses, for your vines, but not in the bush. This is Ted's track just out the back of Aireys Inlet. And what you're seeing here is the impact of Phytophthora dieback in the foreground. In the background, we've got some grass trees here. In the foreground, we've got post-infested landscape, which is grass trees have all been killed, essentially, and we get replacement by sedges. The grass trees in the background are yellowing. They're in big trouble. This was taken last Thursday, and this is an absolute tragedy because it doesn't need to happen. We don't need to let these ecosystems get degraded by Phytophthora. The way the pathogen works is that you need the right sort of environment, particularly likes warm, moist soils. You need to have some host plants, and you need to have the pathogen. The pathogen's in all the ecosystems you guys are dealing with. It's already there. The only thing we can do is to take one of those factors out of that triangle to stop the disease from progressing. And that's where phosphite comes in. It effectively provides some immunity to the host plants from the pathogen. We're taking the host plant element out of that triangle, and that's the effective treatment. I won't stay on this because we've got a fair bit to do. How do we apply phosphite? Here's young Campbell, who I know is in the, sorry, young Campbell. Here's Campbell applying phosphite. He doesn't actually really need to use a respirator for this, according to its chemicals classification, but he did. He thought it was wise. You can apply it by hand. You can apply it by rig. Here's some training with Wadawurrung people as part of the Wild Otways initiative. Trunk injection. They do a lot of this in Western Australia. But where the real bang for your buck is aerial spraying. It's widely used. Phosphite's widely used to control Phytophthora cinnamomi in agriculture. It's not used in protecting the bush widely. In response to this urgent situation, this is despite the fact that we've got all the evidence that shows how effective it is. The Australian government has developed a project to consider and implement a national phosphite registration for management of Phytophthora cinnamomi in native vegetation project. We've already been through stage one, which had literature reviews and then stakeholder input from the scientific community from around Australia. It was agreed that there were a couple of areas that we thought the APVMA would want some more information to help us register phosphite for use in the bush. And they related to the soil biome. In particular, the APVMA asked questions about what are the potential risks to mycorrhizae. And the other one is aquatic systems, which is curious because in normal circumstances, we wouldn't be spraying close to an aquatic system because the pathogen is usually a little bit further upslope. So we tend to keep away naturally anyway. This is important language. There's a risk with everything we do. These studies relate to measurements that indicate that any risks from phosphite use to the soil's living organisms and aquatic systems are manageable. That's what they need to know. So we're currently underway with this project. The field studies are well and truly commenced. And studies examining the differences in soil biodiversity in phosphite treated versus control areas using an eDNA approach being led by Jeff Powell, University of Western Sydney. Testing differences in aquatic community in phosphite treated versus control areas using Oz Rivers, as well as an eDNA approach. That's Vanessa Gorecki, University of Southern Queensland. Also, bats, particularly in northern areas, are really a great indicator of environmental condition, as well as small mammals. We're doing those additional studies as well. The sites where we're working, Victoria, Egan's Track, so bike riding distance from where we're sitting at the moment. In Victoria, box ironbark woodlands and remarkable plant, grey grass tree. Western Australia, Boulder Hill Nature Reserve, 14 years of aerial phosphite application has been going on there to protect critically endangered Andersonia. And in Queensland, we're at the Glasshouse Mountains. That gives you an idea of the spread of sites where we're working. On the top left-hand corner, that is Sandy Creek. No, that one there is Glasshouse Mountains, top left. On the right-hand corner, there's Vanessa working up in the Glasshouse Mountains. Bottom right is Sandy Creek Valley, just near Egan's Track, just south of Carlisle River. On the left is Boulder Hill in Western Australia. If Jeff and Emmy were to turn around, they'd be looking at Mount Many Peaks, which is habitat for Australia's most rare marsupial, which is Gilbert's Potteroo. Amazing country. Egan's Track was first treated in 2023. How am I doing, Jack?
Oh, you want to know?
No. Hey, couple. Egan's Track was first treated in 2023 as part of the Wild Otways initiative, and we did this as a cunning plan. We needed a reference area as well as a treatment area that we could go back to and look more closely at how this treatment works and how we might be able to leverage more scientific information about managing Phytophthora and using phosphite. So that was naturally going to be one of the lead sites for the National Registration Project. We did some camera trapping inside that treatment area from 2023, which is about 4 hectares area. Those 4 hectares in area. These two cameras are about 50 metres apart in that treatment area. And this shows you just some of the species that are within the area that is one of our references in Egan's Track. We've got 3 EPBC Act listed species, being the bandicoot, the swamp antechinus and long-nosed potteroo. We also, to boot, got lovely long-nosed bandicoots there as well. This is our treatment of what we've done this year. The red area is the one we treated in 2023. We did that again this year, and we've done 2 additional areas, one further to the north, and then we actually put phosphite into the creek itself. And then we've done all of our before-after control design, sampling. To the west, is it to the west? Sandy Creek is where our control site is. Now, Egan's Track is that squiggly line down the middle. To the east is the catchment for Lees Creek. The other side of Egan's Track is the catchment to Sandy Creek. So we could repeat all of our work that we were doing within the Egan's Track site, where we've got phosphite treatment within the control site, and we've got adjacent environments. So it's a really, really neat site. This is the flight paths or flight traces of the phosphite treatments that we did in May, late May this year. Which was fantastic. The plane spent all of maybe 8 minutes over the target to complete all of that work. And this is just a final slide. I can answer any questions you like, but there's Barb and me on the left. We're Victorians. We hate leeches. Those are the 2 Queenslanders on the right. They love leeches. They do not care about them whatsoever. But this is at Sandy Creek when we've been doing some of the sampling down there. And once again, I do appreciate the support from Anthony and Helen in allowing us onto their beautiful property. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.